The King Who Killed His Wives, Henry VIII Story. Introduction. In English schools, every child learns a simple rhyme to remember history. It goes like this: divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. These 6 words describe the tragic lives of the 6 women who married King Henry VIII. When we think of Henry VIII today, we think of a fat, angry man with a red beard. We think of a tyrant who chopped off heads when he was in a bad mood. But Henry wasn't always a monster. When he was young, he was the Brad Pitt of the 16th century. He was tall, handsome, athletic, and charming. He wrote songs. He spoke many languages. He was the golden boy of Europe. So what happened? How did this golden prince turn into a serial killer of wives? Was it just cruelty, or was it fear? The story of Henry VIII is not just a story about romance. It is a story about an obsession with having a son. An obsession that changed religion, changed geography, and changed the English language forever. In this video, we are going to travel back to the 1500s. We will meet the 6 queens. We will learn the vocabulary of monarchy, betrayal, and execution. And we will try to understand the man behind the crown. Let's meet the king. Chapter 1. The Obsession. Why he needed a son. Before we meet the wives, we must understand Henry's motivation. Why did he marry so many times? Was he just a womanizer? No, he was afraid. Henry belonged to the Tudor dynasty. His father had won the crown in a war. The family's position was fragile. Henry believed that if he died without a son, England would fall into civil war again. He didn't just want a son. He needed a son. This is called an heir, pronounced like heir. Vocabulary check. Heir. An heir is the person who inherits the title or property when you die. Henry thought that a daughter could not rule England. He thought a woman was too weak to be a queen regnant. Spoiler alert, he was very wrong. His daughter Elizabeth became the greatest ruler in English history, but Henry didn't know that. So keep this in mind. Every marriage was a mission. The mission was, make a baby boy. Chapter 2. Wife number 1. Catherine of Aragon. The loyal one. Henry's first wife was a Spanish princess, Catherine of Aragon. She was actually married to Henry's older brother first, but his brother died, so Henry married her. They were married for 24 years. People often forget this. They think Henry changed wives like socks, but for most of his life he was a loyal husband to Catherine. They were happy. They were a power couple. But there was one problem. The baby problem. Catherine got pregnant many times, but almost all the babies died. Only one child survived. A girl named Mary. Henry was desperate. He was getting old, in his 30s. Catherine was getting older, in her 40s. He knew she could not give him a son. He started to believe that God was punishing him for marrying his brother's wife. He decided he needed a divorce. But in 1527, you couldn't just sign a paper. England was a Catholic country. The boss was the Pope in Rome. Henry wrote to the Pope, "Please cancel my marriage." The Pope said, "No." This created the King's Great Matter. Henry was stuck. He had a wife he didn't want, and a girlfriend he was obsessed with. Chapter 3. Wife number 2. Anne Boleyn. The Obsession. Enter Anne Boleyn. Anne was not a traditional beauty. She was smart, she was funny, and she had style. She had lived in France, so she had a sophisticated French accent. Learning a new accent can make you very attractive and powerful. Just like Arnold Schwarzenegger used his accent, Anne used hers. If you want to improve your own accent, remember to use the shadow technique, which I described in another video. Henry fell madly in love with Anne. He wrote her love letters, which we still have today. But Anne was clever. She said, "I will not be your mistress. I will only be your queen." She forced Henry to make a choice. The church or her? Henry chose her. He broke England away from the Catholic Church. He created his own church, the Church of England, and made himself the boss. He divorced Catherine and married Anne. It was the scandal of the century. It was like Brexit, but 500 years ago. The downfall. Anne promised Henry a son. She gave birth. It was a girl. The future Elizabeth I. Henry was disappointed. Then Anne had a miscarriage, lost the baby. It was a boy. Henry's love turned into hate very quickly. He thought Anne was cursed. He accused her of terrible things: adultery, sleeping with other men, incest, sleeping with her brother, and witchcraft. Were these true? Historians say 99% no. But Henry wanted a new wife. The execution. On May the 19th, 1536, Anne was taken to the Tower of London. She was beheaded. Henry was kind enough to hire a special swordsman from France to do it quickly. She knelt down. Swish. Gone. Henry played tennis while she died. Chapter 4. Wife number 3. Jane Seymour, the true love. Within 24 hours of Anne's death, Henry was engaged to Jane Seymour. Jane was the opposite of Anne. Anne was loud and smart. Jane was quiet and obedient. Her motto was, "Bound to obey and serve." She was exactly what Henry wanted, a boring, traditional wife. And she gave him the one thing he wanted most. In 1537, she gave birth to a baby boy, Edward. Henry cried with joy. Bonfires were lit all over London. The cannons fired. Finally, he had an heir. But the joy turned to tragedy. Jane got sick after the birth. 2 weeks later, she died. Henry was heartbroken. He wore black clothes for months. He truly considered Jane his only true wife, because she gave him a son. When Henry died years later, he asked to be buried next to Jane. Chapter 5. Wife number 4. Anne of Cleves, the Catfish. For 2 years Henry was single, but his advisers told him, "You need more sons. One is not enough." They looked for a foreign princess. They found Anne of Cleves in Germany. Henry had never met her. There was no Instagram in the 16th century. So he sent a painter, Hans Holbein, to paint her portrait. The portrait arrived. She looked beautiful. Henry said, "I like her. I will marry her." He signed the contract. Anne came to England. Henry was so excited that he rode a horse to meet her in disguise. He wanted to surprise her with a kiss. He walked into the room. He saw her, and he stopped. He was horrified. He thought she looked nothing like the painting. He famously called her the Flanders mare, a female horse. This was the first historical case of catfishing. Do you remember my video, The Apartment Hunt? I talked about how landlords use fake photos to trick you. Well, Henry was tricked by a fake portrait. But Henry had to marry her. The political contract was signed. If he refused, it could cause a war. He married her. But he told everyone, "I cannot sleep with her, she is ugly." 6 months later, he divorced her. But here is the twist. Anne was smart. She didn't fight. She said, "Okay, Your Majesty, I agree." Henry was so happy she didn't argue that he gave her money, castles, and the title the King's Sister. She lived a rich, happy life and outlived all the other wives. Sometimes, being rejected is the best thing that can happen to you. Chapter 6. Wife number 5. Catherine Howard. The Tragedy of Youth. By now, Henry was 49 years old. He was extremely fat. He had a painful, smelly ulcer on his leg. He was moody and angry. So who did he marry? A 17-year-old girl named Catherine Howard. She was the cousin of Anne Boleyn. She was young, energetic, and silly. Henry called her his rose without a thorn. He gave her expensive jewelry. He felt young again. But imagine the situation. A 17-year-old girl married to a 49-year-old sick man. Catherine made a mistake. A huge mistake. She started seeing a younger man, Thomas Culpeper. They met in secret at night. Vocabulary check. Treason versus adultery. For a normal person, cheating is adultery. For a queen, cheating is treason, because it puts the royal bloodline at risk. The punishment for treason is death. Henry found out. He didn't want to believe it. He cried. But the evidence was clear. Catherine was arrested. She was taken to the same spot where her cousin Anne Boleyn died. She asked for the execution block to be brought to her room the night before so she could practice how to place her head. She was beheaded. She was maybe 18 or 19 years old. Chapter 7. Wife number 6. Catherine Parr, the survivor. Henry was now old, sick, and terrifying. Who would want to marry him? His final wife was Catherine Parr. She was a widow. Her previous husbands had died. She was smart, educated, and kind. She wasn't a lover. She was a nurse. She cleaned his leg. She listened to his complaints. She managed the royal household. Most importantly, she brought the family together. She convinced Henry to be kind to his daughters, Mary and Elizabeth, and bring them back to court. She was also very lucky. Catherine Parr had strong religious views, Protestant. Henry's enemies tried to arrest her for heresy. They made a warrant for her arrest. But Catherine found the paper. She ran to Henry's room. She cried. She told him, "I only argue with you to learn from your wisdom, your majesty." Henry was flattered. He cancelled the arrest. She survived him. In 1547, Henry VIII finally died. He was 55 years old. His last words were supposedly, "Monks, monks." He was afraid of hell. Chapter 8. Vocabulary Review. Remembering the Words. What a crazy life. Let's review the essential vocabulary from this story so you can talk about history in English. 1. Heir. The person who gets the crown next. 2. To behead. To cut off the head. A gruesome word, but necessary for history. 3. Adultery. Cheating on a husband or wife. 4. Treason. A crime against the king or country. 5. Dynasty. A family of rulers, like the Tudors. And remember the rhyme to help you memorize the order. Catherine of Aragon, divorced. Anne Boleyn, beheaded. Jane Seymour, died. Anne of Cleves, divorced. Catherine Howard, beheaded. Catherine Parr, survived. If you have trouble memorizing lists like this, you should watch my video. How to remember everything. I teach you how to use rhymes and visualization to store facts. Forever. Conclusion. The irony of fate. The irony of Henry's story is incredible. He killed, divorced, and broke the church, all to have a son. He did have a son, Edward, but Edward was a sick boy. He became king at age 9 and died at age 15. So, who ruled England? His daughters. First Mary, Catherine of Aragon's daughter, and then Elizabeth, Anne Boleyn's daughter. Queen Elizabeth I became one of the greatest, strongest, and most loved monarchs in history. She ruled for 44 years. She defeated the Spanish Armada. She created the Golden Age. The weak girl that Henry didn't want turned out to be the best king he ever produced. History has a sense of humor. If you enjoyed this historical drama, please hit the like button. If you like history, you will definitely love my video about the history of the USA. And if you want to hear about my personal disasters, which were less bloody than Henry's but still stressful, watch The Mistake That Cost Me My Flight. Which wife do you feel sorry for the most? Tell me in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and try to keep your head on your shoulders.